there. Okay, well, welcome everyone. It's Wesley here from Business Blessings. And what a great privilege to have Bob Bodine with us this morning. Good morning, Bob. Well, good morning from Australia. Good afternoon in Dallas, Texas, where you are.
Yes, it's a nice day here in Dallas, Texas, and we're pleased and gracious, have huge gratitude on Good Friday for us here that actually we have nice weather, because we haven't had always the best, as you know.
Yes, that's good. Well, I'm just going to pray and commit this time to God. Hey, so Father, we want to thank you for Bob. I want to thank you for those coming on. Father, we just ask that you would guide and lead us and direct us today. Lord, I sense that you want to take us deeper in some things today. So bless this time. May what you want to get across come across in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Well, Bob, just some know you, some don't know you. Do you want to give a bit of a brief catch up of this is who you are?
Yeah, so I'm a CEO of an executive search firm. My dad started the industry back in 1967, and we had offices all over the world. We had one in Australia and in Sao Paulo and Brazil, and various times in various other spots in the world, and China and Japan and everywhere. We had offices everywhere, and we would do just CEOs of businesses and things. And then I got in the business in 1980. So now it's hard to believe that, how did it all of a sudden get 41 years? My dad passed in 2000, but he had a business that when you'll love this, his three things that he told me when I was first joining the business out of consumer packaged goods, and people should always want this, is because my dad was my best friend, but he was smart. So I was really thinking the three things were going to be really technical. And so he said, here we go. Make friends. That's number one. Help your friends in every way possible. And then don't be surprised if you do a lot of business with your friends. And so it's just, people today don't do business with their friends, don't see their friends as resources and conduits. And over the years, we switched. All of a sudden, about 10 years later, I started, saying to my dad, when I was doing a search for a president of a manufacturer, and I said, at the end of the search, I get a tour of the plant. If I did the head of marketing for NBA, we get All-Star Weekend. And so all of a sudden, that's good. And then no one had ever done any searches in sports. And so I prayed to God that, because I really felt him leading me, that's what he wanted me to do. And how unbelievable is that the very first search I get is the commissioner of baseball back when I put in Bud Selig in Major League Baseball. And God is just ninja. And so during this time, my dad passes in 2000, and on his deathbed, he tells me I'm going to write 5 books. And I go, I can't write a memo. And I think there's a lot of people who are listening today who think they maybe think, oh my gosh, you had this, or you had this, or da da da. Well, you're got to be kidding me. First off, don't go in the executive search business. It's the highest mortality rate of any business in the country. And anybody thinks as long as they have a phone, they can be successful, and it's very hard. And they have to pay us whether we fill it or not. We do all that. So, but I think people think about goals and dreams in various aspects of their lives, and they think, oh, hold a second, I haven't done that. And there's a hidden talent in them. And so, I think, early in this process, when my dad was out of work, before he started the executive search industry, he understood. He was out for 6 months, and every day when we got dressed for school, he would be dressed in a suit, like he was going to go to work, even though he was out of a job. He didn't want us to be nervous. And then when we left, he'd come back in and start a search. And then when I worked for him, if somebody came in our office and didn't have an appointment, he would say to us, he said, Bob, I want you to go out, put your arm around him, bring him in. And he says, and sit and talk to him, get a cup of coffee. And he said, there's something great in everyone, and it's your job to find it.
Wow.
And so that's pretty much up to speed as to where all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I wrote a book first and got into the power of who, which was I would have called it the power of friendship. As you know, we talked about that before. And that's what we spent last time, which was I just actually watched it all again our last time we did it, and it was awesome.
I love that interview, and I must say, like, I've been reflecting and thinking the power of who and Two Chairs have been very, very instrumental in my life, because it's made me like I just read your book, and it actually helped me to connect with Manny Pacquiao of all people. And then when he did a fight here in Australia, God said to me, I need to serve him. But I thought, how the heck do I reach out to someone like that? But so I just applied your Power of Who principles and asked friends, who do I know that knows him? And it was 3 connections, you know, and it just went through. So it's very powerful. And of course, 2 Chairs is just life-changing. And there's some people on the call here today who use it every day, and you know, like I do. And it just really opens doors beyond what we can do in the natural. So I'm so grateful for you, Bob, for being obedient to writing those 2.
Yeah, so lucky to have. I mean, it's like blessed, you know, to have parents that I had who God gives you initially, right? I think He gave me my 2 parents specifically so I could help mentor and share other things to a lot of other people who maybe didn't have that.
Yes.
And you know, and so, you know, there's 70% of men, at least in the United States, that have never had their dad say, "I love you."
Yeah.
And so we get a chance when I go to meetings, I have everyone hugging each other, telling them we love each other. It's just reminding people there's 180 words in the Greek language for love. We have 1. So I love my wife, Cheryl, of almost 38 years, and I love tacos, you know? And so it's somewhat confusing, but the answer is that we can tell people we love them. You know why? There's so many different things, and it's not inappropriate. It's not this, but it's sure a whole lot better than like.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. So, Bob, I want to go deeper today. Like 2 Chairs is great, and I love the stories in there. But what are some examples for you where God kind of talks to you and maybe warns you about something, or maybe talks to you and corrects you in something during your 2 Chairs time?
Yeah. He does it in numerous ways. So first off, as you know, and as people do, is these. I had a friend the other day. He said, "So are you really talking about chairs?" No, we're actually talking chairs. And I think it's so crucial at your house to have it. And you can have it outside. Don't get me wrong. And I don't mind people doing that when it's beautiful out. But you should have something inside. The only reason I say it is it's the blessing of having like an Ark of the Covenant sitting in your house.
Yes.
And when God comes in, the presence of God is fullness of joy. Even if He said nothing, your whole strength is set for the day. And so look at, He's already waiting there. I mean, I leap up out of my bed to go there. And so don't write books and not think you're not going to have trouble. I mean, it's coming at you like a storm. God promises that. Can you imagine that I would have the quote? I mean, you know, I have that as my life quote that, you know, in this world, you're going to have trouble. But the next line was be of good cheer. So there must be something here. So the fact is, the more you do it, the more, you know, listen, God knows everything about you, and He wants you to know everything about Him. So when I sit down and I go into it, if there's something that I have held as unforgiveness with someone, I can just immediately hear like a quiet, and God's not really quiet with me, you know, in this process. He's always like affirming. So when I first start out, thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm a mess a little bit today. I've got so much on my mind. I'm drinking coffee. I'm trying to get my first cup down, and so I can get into my second cup, and then I'm sitting and I say, hey, so I got issues with 3 of my girls, with some of my grandkids. You know, my business, I got something over here, you know, whatever it is. And then and there's nothing. And he looks and goes, and then it's imprinted in my mind that all of a sudden I had this negative conversation, right? And he goes, so are you okay?
He goes, are you okay?
And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, I don't know. Why don't you go ahead? And he says, I'm going to put something on your mind. And that's how he says, I'm going to put a word on your mind. Tell me what that is. And I looked at it and he goes, and I feel the word. I said, sad. And he goes, that's what your heart is. And he says, there's a part of your heart, Bob. He says, I'm trying to get through because we have so much to do today. I mean, I need you to get out and do some things. You seek me first, and then all these other things I got for you. I don't even want you thinking about those things. It is such ridiculous. You're the son of the king. How do you not understand who you are and whose you are and the path you're called? So I got some things. Now listen, go ahead and tell me about it. And I go, I don't know how. And I just dropped right in. I know, I don't know how I got in that conversation. And I said, I was just mad and I was so proud about something that I said, I said, there was something that I just felt there was so much danger that I thought I'd just say something out of danger that I felt for my daughter, that I'd say something. And he goes, how did that work? Not good. Not good. And he goes, listen, I want you to stop for a second and send her a text as before we start. Tell her how sorry you are. And so I'm emotional. It's just like, oh. And so we just stopped. He said, look, I'll wait. And so I just started talking. Oh my God. Rachel, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I don't know how I messed up. And I said, I should know better than to try to tell you this and that. I said, listen, I love you. I know you'll make, good decisions on that. And immediately it comes back, it's early. I didn't think she'd be up. Immediately it comes back, Dad, I can't believe you sent this. I was just up and I was just talking to God about it. Of course you were.
Yes.
You got this thing triangle happening here. And so it wouldn't matter if that, I'll come in and all of a sudden, like I put in people in search and sometimes the person I put in then hires other people to do their jobs. I just got them that whole opportunity. I look at God and I go, do you know about this?
Yes. That's a great question.
I do. And I go, you could have gotten me that. Oh yeah. That's the sound. This out. And I go, he goes, are you poor? No. Have I let you lie down before? He says, listen, if I wanted you to have that, I'll get it for you. I give you all this. You don't ever go for it. I give it to you. This is a different relationship that God has with people at Two Chairs. This is a remnant. There are less than 1% of people in the country, in your country, in all of our countries that are doing Two Chairs at a normal basis. Can you imagine? It's a remnant. This is a group. If you're doing Two Chairs at the moment, when I started writing Two Chairs, God stopped me right off the bat and said to me, now listen, people are going to ask you, you're going to be on with like Wes and people are going to ask you, is God going to talk to me? What do you say to them? Oh, yes. I'm going to tell them you said that. And he goes, well, that's good. I needed you to say that out loud because it's going to be hard for some people to believe that God can do that because they don't feel good about themselves. And it's just bad.
So, which is actually that leads me one of the other questions that's been going around my mind because we had another guest on earlier this week and some things have come out of it. And one of those things is I sense that people are actually afraid to meet with God.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to ask you that. What do you say to people when they're afraid to do the Two Chairs because they feel like God may berate them about something, because and a lot of times it is about their picture with God as well.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Usually it's somehow their dad. It's the same dad figure, right? Your dad didn't treat you somewhere, and there's something that's still hidden that you can't deal with, and then you have the dad figure go straight to God. So here's one. So I had a guy come into my office, big time sports. He's out. He got in trouble. He did something he shouldn't have done, and they come into my office here. And they're not looking for the power of who, they're looking for the power of Bob.
Yes.
and they haven't read the book. They did the Cliff Notes, right?
Yes.
And they're not doing that. And so I've listened to it all. And I immediately, because when you sit with people all the time, one of the things you have is a gift of discernment. And immediately this is like mantled under me from my dad and from God and all the way through. And so when I sit there, I already know immediately where he's going. And I go, I said, what's really interesting? I said, so you've had such hard times. And some of the things I say to him, I said, when I was looking for goals and dreams and times of trouble, I said, even though my dad was a CEO, Mensa, Notre Dame, big time CEO, kind of walked in like Ronald Reagan, and he had this whole figure, and it was just unbelievable. And I said, but when I did it, I went to my mom because she was kind of my spiritual go-to. And if I speak in prisons, I say, how many people had a good mom? And all their hands go up. How many people had a good dad? There's not one. and so I always tell them, this is unbelievable. So I said to him, my mom, when I came to her about these kind of trouble, and you're talking about it, I said, it's not really the power of who at the moment. So I said, what I want to talk to you is, I said, my mom said that she had answers for me, but she wanted the way she would describe it to me, she would ask me 3 questions. So I want to ask those to you. And I said, of course, you can't get mad at me. You'd have to get mad at my mom. and everybody can use this. Listen, a friend of mine wrote this book. Everybody can do it with every single person. And I want to ask you these questions, and don't get mad you can't get mad at me. You have to get mad at his mom. And so now that we're free. And so the questions are simple. That's what I always tell these guys, very simple, but they're disruptive. And so here comes the question. I said, do you think God knows your situation? And he goes, no. I go, really? I said, first off, thank you for saying that. I so appreciate that you're being transparent. And I said, so I said, so my next question, I think I know the answer, is that you think it's too hard for him? And he goes, well, I don't believe in him. And so I go, okay. And I said, so you don't think he has a good plan? Well, of course not. And I said, but you believe in the power of Bob. I said, so I believe in God. So I said, so if there was a 1% chance that God would meet you tomorrow, the guy who created the whole world, would you go? He says, yes. I say to him, I thought you were an atheist. And he goes, if the guy who created the whole world would actually meet with me, I'd be interested. I said, let's call the meeting right now, because this is the answer. You don't want to meet with some crazy person like me, because I'm crazy, because I believe in God. And so I'm telling you, do you own chairs? And he goes, I own chairs. And I said, set up 2 chairs, go to it tonight and say, this crazy guy, Bob, said that I was going to meet you tomorrow, and this will be the telling thing. And I said, when you go, get ready, because I want you to buckle up. I said, just call me as soon as it's over. At 9 o'clock, he calls me in the morning, and he's crying on the phone. He said he turned the corner, and oh my gosh, it was like totally a different room. He said it just didn't feel anything like it. He started to walk up, and God says to him, he hears God say, hey, Jim, thank you so much for coming today. And I said, what did you do? He said, I fell on my knees and said, I'm sorry. Of course you did. Where people say to me, now listen, I've never had a 2-chair experience in my life ever where I told him my worst, the things that I know he knows, all the things that I wish I hadn't done, all the things that I'm fearful of. And this, he looked at me and goes, so first, listen, boy, he says, it's really good just us being together this morning right off the bat. He says, listen, we're going to do some things today. I'm so proud of you. I said, how could you be proud of me? Oh no, he's, so listen, Jesus paid for that, Bob. You're not guilty. I love you. You're the apple of my eye. And I tell people all the time, listen, your picture is on his refrigerator. So listen, you have nothing. There's nothing that doesn't mean, as Paul used to say, listen, it doesn't mean hey, oh boy, because I'm allowed to sin, I'm going to go sin a bunch of times. The answer is it's the harder part is just getting out of the habit of feeling bad. So one of the biggest problems is that this is about something so fantastic. And what it starts to say is that I want to tell people there's no impact, because people are looking for impact in their life. But there's no impact without contact.
Yes.
Listen, what good is it? Kids say to me, Mr. Bodie, and I don't go to church. I said, what good is it to go to church if you don't know God? I said, you own chairs? You got bean bags? You got a couple rocks? You got little, open up small little chairs and things you have. I mean, I don't care what it is. You set it up, he'll meet you. You won't be the same. I don't care. And so I have people all over the world sending me pictures every day of their 2 chairs. It's the most amazing thing. And so I will say to you is this: he's not mad at you. He's not mad he made you. He made no mistakes. He doesn't regret anything. He has an assignment and a purpose and a destiny for you, and it's unbelievable. Each person listening today, you do one thing better than anyone else in the whole world, and you got to run to your 2 chairs to start your day, because he's normally saying, I'll listen, I'll start saying, hey, here's all the things that I got. And he goes, okay, wow, great. Okay, so now listen, I got that. And so now I go, and so he says, do you get that? Because I got it. I want to know if you get it. And so I said, I get it. And he goes, okay. And so he said, now listen, at 10 o'clock, I got somebody I want you to take some time for. And I said, who is it? He goes, you'll know. And then he says this, are you available? Because it won't be convenient. But since he said, listen, I own all the time and all the space and all the matter. I don't live in that. I made it. And so people need to get their heads around. You can't lean on your own understanding here. You just got to acknowledge him, and he directs the path. There's nothing about this that you can actually do. It's incomprehensible what God's going to do. And it's incomprehensible that you're looking for position, power, and money, trying to get peace, happiness, and contentment like you think you can do that. Like financial security equals peace of mind. That would mean the richest people are the most peaceful. Oops. Happiness equals things. Well, as soon as I get a nice thing, I want a new nice thing. And we're humans. Here's the thing. You have a position, daughter and son of the king. If you only knew how important you were to God, how powerful you are, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead resides in you. He gave you a new heart. He gave you a new mind. You think like he thinks. He can send you things. So like when my wife calls me on the phone, people always say this. So what are you talking about? Like, how do you hear God? What are you talking about? Every day you listen to the enemy, you know exactly who that is.
Yes, exactly.
He's got full on attack all the time. He can try to get me anywhere. And then, so my wife calls me at the office. Hey, honey, what are you doing? I don't go, who is this? No, I know her voice. God says that my sheep know my voice. You know it. So listen, this is a mind blower. Before the foundation of the world, God said he knew you. People have to get their heads around this. That means that if you knew, you had to have talked. I don't know anybody that I haven't talked with. Know somebody and not talk to them. And so that could have been for 5 minutes or 500 years. And I believe that he told you your whole life. I do. He showed you the beginning and the end. See, that's what the interesting aspect of 2 chairs. People say to me, what the heck is 2 chairs? And I said, it's the beginning and the end. It's the nucleus of the cell. You know, it's like everything emerges from our 2 chairs time. And so this is a source of everything. And so I just kind of find we're just not, I don't know, Wes. It's just, it's a time now that God looks and he wants people to really figure out that you just come and show up. Fearful, bothered, sinful, annoyed, in the midst of a potential divorce with your wife, in the midst of all of a sudden you just got fired, you don't want to tell anybody, you just lost all your money, you've been gambling on the side, you've been doing things that you don't anybody wants to know. He knows. And the safest place you can be is at 2 chairs. Yeah. You go, the quicker you're all of a sudden going to be able to be knowing that I don't want to be any other place but here. I mean, can you imagine? So God says that he knew you before the foundation, and then he showed you your life. So what did he show you? The good, the bad, the ugly, and the epic. And you said, I want that. And he goes, now hold a second. There's bad stuff here. And he goes, no, I can do that if I get that. And he goes, you're going to do all that because I'm the author and finisher of your faith. I do it. You're not going to have to do it. I mean, you got to just show up. You're not an achiever with me. You're a receiver. This concept of achievement is just out of control here. And so you're doing the done. So our faith, and I sit with people, I go, so our faith, whether you realize it or not, says that we died, okay, spiritually, just like Christ is, and on Good Friday is dying, and then he's rising. And then we are seated, it says, in heavenly places. SEATED. That's 2 chairs.
Yes.
And so this is so good. And so he goes, now listen, he says, so Bob, you understand that like heaven, Bob, is just like here. We could like put our hand in, it's like the field of dreams. You have no idea with time and space of where everything is. I mean, it doesn't have to be up above this or that. But he said, now listen, he says, the Lord's Prayer said that, when Jesus said, hey, as it is in heaven, is on earth, you're just bringing this down into your house, which is really actually coming back up into the throne room, because on Good Friday, they're ripping this out after the 3rd day. And all of a sudden, we now have contact for the first time back again with God. And so this is Easter, such a big day for 2 chairs.
Yes.
Holy cow, you get to actually, everyone who's listening realizes that there's a limit to what they can do. And so here's the problem that God says when you're up before the foundation of the world. He says that, okay, so you want this. Now listen, I'm going to put you in your mom's womb and you're going to forget me. And then you got to find me. And then you got to find the assignment, the purpose of the destiny of this call. And so you're going to do it. You are going to do it great. These people, they got to have it. It's just, they got to understand. I don't care. You do not have fear. You have a spirit of fear. The spirit of fear jumps on you. If you and I are around a person, they come in with all this fear, all of a sudden it's trying to jump on Wes and Bob. And we don't have the spirit of fear. What do we have? Power and love and a sound mind. And I reject it. I reject that. If you reject the enemy, if you say no, he must have to cower and flee. The problem is, we listen to this so much and we never listen to God. I had this football coach call me the other day, and he's a new head coach like at Rutgers. And so he said to me, oh my gosh, Bob, he said, did you write a second book? I said, yes. He says, I love your mom. He goes, and he goes, that could have really helped me during my time in one of my previous jobs. And I go, yeah, I know, I really could have. And he goes, listen, I've been doing 22 years of quiet time with God, Bob. I just never knew I was the one who was supposed to be quiet.
Yes.
I said, these people write my books for me. How would I even do anything? Half this stuff, people, if I start telling all the stories about this, I had an 88-year-old woman call me the other day and she goes, Bob Bodine? And I go, yes. And she goes, is this his call center? And I go, I don't have a call center. I said, this is my cell phone. And I'm thinking, I go, so what's your name? Sarah. Oh gosh, Sarah, thank you. I said, Sarah, so what's going on? Oh my gosh, I love your mom. I love 2 chairs. This is so fantastic. And I go, great, fantastic. Why are you calling? And so she goes, I'm not hearing God. Really? And I said, so how long have you been doing this? I started today. I go, okay. So you spent 88 years never doing 2 chairs. And now if people don't really realize that the enemy's going to try not to get you to do this, because doing this, when you sit across from God at your chair, you're like Moses sitting at the burning bush. Your countenance is changed in the presence of God. And everyone knows it. You will all of a sudden build confidence that you will know that you're the son or daughter of the king. You will then have some specific things that you're looking for today, because when you have cares, which of course, I don't believe we were created to have any ability to carry cares. That's why our bodies go bad when all of a sudden we start to try to carry stress. And so what happens is if all of a sudden I'm worried about Rachel, and I'm worried about Cheryl. And then all of a sudden Wes has got a problem. And now all of a sudden I only need one more. And then I lost sight of everybody else. And I can't do one thing. And God said, would you give me all those things? See, this is the reason he wants to have two chairs. You got to have an exchange. We got to exchange all my stuff so that he can give you peace. He promises his peace. He's got to give it to you. He promises if you spend time with him, he'll give you peace. He'll give you wisdom. If you'd ask him, he'll give you insight and power and favor, unlike anything. And that's what we have to do, because he said that these signs are going to follow those who believe. They're going to do all these unbelievable gifts. You know what? I keep looking at people and I'm going, show me who's doing any of them. I don't see anything. And the reason is no impact, no contact. You spend time with him and you have to you end up looking like him in the mirror. Why? Because I'm just going to go out because I'm really excited. And I turn to the person and I say, hey, oh no. Yeah. No, I'm in. I mean, how do you think so I got up one morning about 10, 12 days ago, and God says to me, Wes Leak. That's what he said to me. At 2. I said, Australia? And he goes, yeah, we're doing his show. We need to do something. I have some people there that I'm really about to explode some things throughout their whole world. And listen, we've got to get this in their head that they're important, that I'm in with them, that I'm not mad at them, that I'm going to take them to heights they have never seen. And he says, you tell him that you want to do this. And then I called you and you said, oh my gosh, let's do it.
And I'm thinking,
and here we are.
Absolutely crazy, Bob. It's Easter Saturday morning. Who the heck is going to join us?
Exactly. I mean, that's my point. But you know what? I've done talks before, such huge crowds. And then if I do just, someone asked me the other day, so how did you ever learn how to do talks in front of people? I said, I did like 2,675 one-on-one before I ever did a talk. This to me is so much fun. I love it. I can do talks with individuals. I'm just a jabber. I got so much inside me. Out of the abundance of the heart, Bob's mouth keeps talking. What do you do? I'm just trying to tell people, hold a second. Listen, God is amazing. He's not something. You're amazing when you have God.
Yes.
But, everything's done. You're doing the done.
Okay, Bob, let's get down to real. And we just chatted about this just before you came on. Obviously God spoke to you about something prior to the pandemic happening. You guys in the US in a way worse situation than what we are in Australia. But tell me, how is God leading you and guiding you through this time in your 2 chairs?
Yeah. So first is that first, the good side of it is that I'm in Texas and we're kind of like our own country. Texans don't think like anybody else. It's not like, we're not really like all big into masks. I've only been out of my office 2 weeks. And we have so much good things happening around us, right? And there's so many things. But here's what I want to get across. So I'm executive search in sports. And of course, every college and every pro team and everybody in sports shut down. And so, hold a second, they're not like allowing me to stop paying for my nice office. They're expecting that to be paid constantly. And they're not like paying us a lot of money in the United States on our little program from the United States coming, because we don't do that. We've been doing a bunch of other stuff, paying a bunch of other people. And so I immediately, 3 months before this is how gracious God is. So you have to understand that God's always talking to you all the time. And he's so listen, he doesn't have 6 telephone lines for 7 billion people. He doesn't just work on pandemics, heart attacks, natural disasters. He knows your name. He knows your cell number. He knows exactly where you live. and you're important. He's counted every hair on every person's head. He digs you, and he's got a plan, and it's good, and it's prosperous, and has a future, and it has a hope. So whatever anybody has, usually the first thing I always tell people is I'm a contrarian. Why? Because I'm a Christian. And so anything the world says, I believe the opposite. So if you tell me about trouble, so people usually come into my office and say, oh my gosh, I just had this and I lost it. I lost everything. And I say to them, congratulations. Oh my gosh, this is the greatest day of your life. And they look at me like, what? And I go, you hated that job. You hated this. You got to get, this is God. God stopped all churches. He stopped all of this. Why? He wants this. Yeah. Listen to me. They didn't have churches back then. They had trees. You just did it under a tree. And so 3 months before the pandemic, God says to me, so I want you, and you got to be listening. I mean, in 08, 09, we had a big downturn, and God was telling me a bunch of stuff. I heard nothing of it. And I could have done different investments. I could have done, because the market goes this way. This is the perfect time to take it and buy and go this way. And God all of a sudden is giving you new products wherever there's trouble. I mean, I wouldn't be in an executive search business if the only reason my business is available is because you all have trouble.
Yes.
And so I love trouble. I mean, I'm the perfect person for it because I see it contrarian. And I think I can sell someone on coming in and taking this trouble and taking something great. Okay, so, and I have in basketball, it's a perfect thing because in the basketball, coming in the Final Four is like Baylor University. I don't know if it's a Christian university in Waco, Texas. And 18 years ago, I put in Scott Drew after a murder on his basketball team. It wasn't his. I brought him in after a murder. And it's the greatest sports story in history. And so he's in the Final Four. And it's so big. It's so unbelievable. And he's such a great Christian. But I love stories where I can put in people who can change everything. But going back 3 months before, God says to me, hey, so listen, I want you to set up an LLC. And I want you to start doing some different types of business. I said, so can I do that? What's an LLC? Can I do that? And he goes, yeah, it's simple. You can do that in a day. And he just kind of says, hey, tell your CFO and you'll set this up. And then he says, I'm going to bring you some business and you're going to do relational equity. So understand that the power of who and two chairs. So the greatest relational equity is sitting across from you at two chairs. So he owns everything. He's got control of it all. All you need when you sit with him is one thought and one idea and one friend. He tells you who that is. I'm not going to get you with somebody you don't need. One idea, one thought. And all of a sudden, so he puts one thought in my mind and says, set this up. And then you're going to go out and you're going to help all these college and sports and professional teams because they're going to need revenues and they're going to need some specific products. Trust me, I'll get them to you. And then all of a sudden you're going to be able, because no one can do it because it's bureaucratic. And in times of trouble, have you ever noticed in times of trouble, people hate asking good questions?
Yes.
Okay. They don't ask. So that's bad. And then number two is, do you ever notice that they all become no because people instead of yes if? It's unbelievable. So you could be handing them the greatest thing in the world and they cannot receive it because they're sitting fearful and sitting in quicksand and they're wondering, oh my gosh, I'm not going to do it. And then, hey, they're not going to say anything positive. They're never going to say they're ever going to get anywhere. Listen, you're the son and daughter of the King. The same person who raised up Jesus lives in you, and he's not poor. He said he supply your needs according to his riches in glory. So this is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Everybody like goes back to Mary and Joseph and they said, oh, well, Jesus, he grew up so poor. Really? So like they come in and they have this really thing, they have the birth, and then here comes the kings with gold bars and frankincense and myrrh. I don't remember anyone else talking about that. No. And then they have the story of the rich man. Well, the rich man who he's asking him to come follow him. It was a rich man who had never had any of the wealth that he developed himself. That's why he was saying it to him. He had nothing. He did nothing for it. He just got it was given to him and he had no life. And God has given each of us a life where you do one thing better and he's got to get you to do it. And then the people here who all of a sudden he's given out things who he's given to, and then you invest it well and you work hard and you think with your mind and you do things that are good for people. What is it again? Make friends, help your friends in every way possible. Don't be surprised if you do a lot of business with your friends. I mean, come on. I mean, if you don't have a plan for your life, then someone has one for you. And I don't know about you, but that sounds like a threat.
Yes, yes.
And so I'm not going for somebody else's love. Here's the thing that everyone should be thinking. I should do something I love with people I love in a place I love where my family loves, and I get to do it for all the right reasons. Here's the problem. Most people love the job, hate the people, love the people, hate the job, love the people, love the job, hate the city. I mean, they're like constant. No dinging here. You should be celebrated and not tolerated. You should be given tools. Your family should always love it. And you should be able to create a legacy and be paid well. So I set up this little company, and in 2 or 3 weeks, I had 6 companies that wanted to do business with me. And now I don't even know how to express it. So now I have equity in these companies and I'm doing business. And one company here can give me 15 years of executive search business. 15 years. And so that's just the way God works. But you would have to have faith.
Yeah.
It's an interest. So sitting with God at 2 chairs is the ultimate faith, because you're sitting at an empty chair. Well, I'm not, but some people think they are. And so they just think this is kind of foolishness. Yeah, I don't know. Set up the chairs and sit down and see what happens. Because when you walk in, I've had people walk in and there's a fog in their room. I've had people walk in and all of a sudden, it was like a totally different atmosphere. And, so I don't even know how to express it. I had a guy who was the head of security for a sports team, and he was, late 60s, and he grew up Lutheran. He didn't really, he always believed, gosh, Bob, God would never talk to me. My dad, never told me he's loved me, and this kind of stuff. I gave him the book of 2 chairs. And because I was on the board of the Texas Ranger baseball team, so he's doing it, and he reads this book. And then he said to me, can I talk to you? Sure. And he goes, I had no idea you wrote books. And then I'm reading this book, and he says, I'm not really like reading a book. I'm like all of a sudden having an experience with God reading your book. And so I can't wait to do my first 2 chairs. And so he says, I come around the corner. Oh, I mean, it's like, he says, I've got a duck to come into the room. Okay. It's like, he said, I don't understand. I have to bow. It's like the eye of the needle. But people never understand how hard it is for a rich man to get in. It's like the eye of the needle. Well, that was a camel who had to bow down to come in. That's what God's always saying. You got to like bow into this. Listen, have you any idea who you're sitting with? I mean, you're not sitting with like Beyonce or somebody. I mean, you're sitting with, we're talking with the who of who's, the King of Kings. This is like the big moment. And so he comes into the room and he's bowed in, and he comes and sits down, and he puts his hands like right on his knees, and he's got his head down. And he goes, Fred. Oh, Fred, man. He said, I have been waiting for this moment with you. And he says, Fred, you're not too late. You're not too early. This is just perfect. And all of a sudden, Fred's just like, he doesn't know what to do. And he sits there, and then he feels God's hands on his hands. And while I'm sitting and talking to him, he just starts uncontrollably crying. And so I just said to myself, wow. So here's the coolest thing, Wes, is that we're in an opportunity to all of a sudden have God with us. We can do some things that has never been done. It's so wildly good. And so, Zig Ziglar, the great, motivational guy, used to always say, so he used to always say, you don't have to be great to start, but you got to start to be great. And I'm just asking people is this, the challenge is, listen, if there's a 1% chance, would you go? I bet it's yes. And then the question is, but most people are all not going because they're fearful for some reason, like, hey, like he's got a book here, like he's keeping of all your stuff. My own point is I come down in the morning and I go, "Hi, I'm total mess." And I look and say, "Hey, I have no idea." Or if I'm in something, I keep at my bedside a book of that, a little pad of paper so I can do it. So if I wake up at like 2 o'clock and all of a sudden I'm like thinking of stuff and I'll go, "Hey, did you want me to get up? Or you want me just to write that down?" Yeah, write that down and tell me what it is. Write the 3 things that you're just thinking about. And he says, "We'll talk about that in the morning." And then he'll turn to me and he'll turn and say, "No, you got to get up. Let's go talk." And then I get up, sit down, and he goes, "Listen, that was full on attack. None of that is true. Here's what's true. You're a treasure chest of gifts and talents. You listen to me, you're mine. I got you. We're going to do these things. We're going to do great, mighty things. I want you to know that it doesn't get easier though. The hard part is you have to have faith. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. So all we needed was a measure, a seed. And then it turns into the substance with what? Hope. I just got to hope it. And then I got restarting. And faith, what does it do? Then it does this crazy thing. Faith calls things that are not as though they were. There it is. Bob's contrarian guy. Oh no, this is the greatest day in the world. Oh no, hey, so everybody who says, "Hey, we could never do this." No, I think we probably can. How? I don't know. With God, all things are possible. And I think people need to think that.
Bob, I want to unpack that because I often find that God speaks to me about doing something. So God says you set up the LLC, but then there's a lot of other stuff that comes. So obviously it's a continual going back to him. Okay, I've done this. What's next? Or like, how do you process those kind of things?
Yeah. So I was seeing a question that somebody just put up already about that they didn't hear God loud. And so I was doing it. I was kind of listening to you, but God was telling me first. So I want to tell first to her just because I just saw it. It just came on my.
That's okay. Yeah, go for it.
I want to say it, and then I want you to ask this question again. So people ask me all the time, does God talk out loud to you? I have people all around the world in various parts of the world that have less Western thoughts of impossibility of that subject. And they tell me they've heard God speak. I haven't heard that. I've been in situations which crazy where angels and things that people did something for me and they had to have been an angel. I don't know how it is. I never saw them again. That just did. The stories are so wild, but I will tell you this. Do you hear the enemy speak to you? And do you know that common voice? Isn't it interesting? If you tell anyone that you talk to God, they're going to call you schizophrenic, or they're going to call you and think that you're religious, and they're going to say there's something you're not allowed to do that. Really? So yes, I'm the son of the king, and you're the daughter of the king. And I saw that murder. I mean, the answer is yes. God does it. And so listen, you start to keep a pad, and when you start to think your thoughts, I just need you to write your thoughts down. What did you just hear? What did he say? Keep writing them down. And then when you look back, you're going to be amazed. My mom started me doing something. It was crazy. We started doing letters to the Lord. So she would say, listen, when you're really in a struggle, I need you to write, "Dear God," and then start to tell every problem out loud. You write it all the way down and don't stop until you're mad and you get it all the way through, etc., and all the way through. And then you're done. And then boom. And then you wait a second, you pray. You start praying. And then you go, "Dear Myrna." And then watch what he says to you, how affirming and what he says to you. And then you're going to go back. And I want you, as you finish this letter, he's going to tell you every detail. And now you're going to start to see prophetic things that are all of a sudden going to start to happen in your life. So you do not know. Listen to me. We serve a supernatural God. We can't have something that's natural. Our world is in a disaster zone. We have people who are coming against us and everything. But listen, God said he's going to put a hedge around you. He's covering you. No weapon formed against you is going to prosper. He's going to supply your needs. He's got ideas and thoughts and inspiration and wisdom. And the answer is it's all bigger and better than gold and silver. All this is something he provides you instantaneously because you have the mind of Christ. And you have to start writing and saying notes up. I can do all these things. You got to start saying to yourself, I hear God. and look at him and say, because God always asks me sometimes, and we fit. Now, listen, do you believe that I'm taking this? Because this is a big one for you. And I go, I'm struggling on this. He goes, okay, so stir it up. And I go, what do you mean? Stir it up. He says, I want you to stir up the fact that says that I want you to write all the things down that have happened good to you in the last year, all the times I've done it. So when people like say to me, oh, hey, so I spend time, and I say, well, what did God say? God talks every day. What I'd like to, 6 years ago, God did something for me. What? Come on. I mean, it's the craziest thing in the world. I have something happen every day. And the reason is, are you available? And so you do not have to try. I don't have to go out in a placard and hold my placard up and say that God saves. I don't have to go hand out stuff unless God told me to do that. I mean, I'd go circle Jericho and do my pans and do it if God told me to do it. But I don't have to do that. But my only point is, he just said to me, God, the Holy Spirit, he says, when Jesus at the end turned, he said, I've got something great here. Now listen, I'm going to go. I'm going to leave, but I'm going to give you the Holy Spirit. And he's going to lead you and teach you and guide you and comfort you and tell you to turn left or right. You know his voice. Why? How would you know that voice? Before the foundation of the world, you already talked to him. You actually already know him. And that's why you're getting these deja vu moments all the way through your life telling you, oh my gosh, what's to happen? And people will cross your path. When my dad told me I was going to write 5 books, I scoffed. He goes, no, you're Bob, of course you are. And so I didn't start writing for 4 more years. And every year someone came across and go, oh my gosh, you should write that in a book. I'm just telling you. And I go, wow. And then God looked at me each time I'm doing 2 chairs. He goes, how many more boats and helicopters do I got to send you? I mean, it's the funniest thing in the world. As we go, I'm going to move my thing because I'm over here so I can walk and talk as I put this on a charger as we go here, but it's going to be good. So keep talking. This is alive as we go. This is good. Australia here. I could get it on my phone charger. Of course, you would expect my phone charger wouldn't, as I'm looking outside my deal, you would expect I'm going to close that down, but my phone charger, because I talk so much as an executive recruiter, this is just happening all the time. So, okay. So what was your last question?
God speaks to you. Like, so for example, he talked to you about setting up the LLC and you think, okay, that's crazy, but it seems crazy to me, but God's told me to go out and do it. How do you process those kind of things? Because like, I know often God speaks to me about something, but then there's a process that you go through and keep coming back to him. And
so I believe and I do this with people all the time. It's called one thing leads to another. It's a game I play. And so the very first thing that he said to me was, hey, I want you to set up an LLC. So the first question is, it's like my dad used to, when he worked with me, I'd say, hey, I got this search. I'm doing this for this guy. And he goes, hey, there's 2 guys that you really should call because they have the answers to this. And then he walks in to get some coffee and he's already expecting by the time I come back that I've already started my call. I mean, it's like we're not like taking any chances here. You got to be able to get this as fast as you can. And so I did. So my one thing leads to another is that I immediately set up the deal, the LLC. The second thing I did in my process is that I started to tell people in my office that I'm going to do this. Then third is that people called me and I was expecting something to happen. So I'm looking for the telephone call of the company that's going to call and give me. And right off the bat, this company that was a digital company who wanted to digitize pictures and everything said, hey, listen, we have this unbelievable thing. We take all the pictures that everybody has in sports teams and they don't lose all their history and everything of what they do. And this will be fantastic. And he said it will cost like $1 million or $2 million to do it. And I know they can't afford it, but what we're going to do is we'll sponsor it with like powered by IBM, powered by Bank of America, powered by something. And he says, and then you'll be able to do it. But we can't get to the person, and we need you to open it up. And then immediately, bam, I just started opening up people. And when we found that all of that made revenues for these people, fantastic. And then we had a gaming, kind of a little sports gaming thing. And then we had food. Because of COVID, they couldn't actually hand out food because they were all in a bubble and they couldn't have anybody. They couldn't sit like at little hotels and go through, the little banquet area where all of a sudden they go, get their food. And so one thing led to another, and all of a sudden, each of these has opened up doors that are so wild that how do you express it, right? It's too cool. So this one thing leads to another is so good. And that's what I'm saying to people. So I believe that everything great that's ever happened to you has happened. That's really where I'm writing my next book. Is everything happens. My next book is, I think, going to be called 5 Minutes or Less. And how to live a transformational life in a transactional world. And everything great happens to you in 5 minutes or less. Everything bad happens. And so, but when this 5 minutes or less happens, that means that you and I might talk for an hour, but while we're on this call, people are getting little 5 minute bursts.
Yeah.
They're remembering the 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I've got to keep doing my part and then into this thing, and we got to keep getting it. And then sometimes you're with somebody and they're not ready to hear the truth. And you're going to sit and talk for a while. And then guess what? Bam, I'm hitting you with the 5 minutes. And God doesn't really do that. That's why 5 minutes in the presence of God at 2 chairs is, changes all your best laid plans.
Bob, you are so good.
I mean, I wish it's so good because God's so amazing, right? I'm going to pull this all the way up here. And so, hold on 10 seconds while we do this. These people are going to keep asking questions. I'm going to move this little chair. It's just like, awesome. Here we go.
This is so good.
I got it. This is good. We never do anything like, that's good. I don't actually have to hold that.
Okay.
I'm really bad.
Okay.
Now we're
okay.
Really good.
So I do have a number of questions. So one of the things, like you talked about, you took equity in those different companies. Like, how do you know when to do that? Like, obviously, so it's one thing to connect people together, but it's a very different thing then to take equity in a company. Like, was that just God whispering to you about that?
Yeah. So what he turned to me and he said, this is a really good point. God talks just like you and I are talking. And just like these people are hearing questions. How do they hear those questions?
Yes.
I mean, you're missing the whole thing. You heard that question because God wanted something that's connecting, right? And so one thing's leading to another. So one of the things I did was, so in tough times with sports teams and all this stuff, well, they don't want to pay me more money. So that's my problem. My search fees. You got to pay me a lot of money to start the search. And so when I go out to this company, they don't have a lot of money to do it. But what they do have is they need the relational hit. And so like in companies today, the real money is made by bringing 2 big partners together and selling them, buying them. So most people should be thinking right now is, listen, if you go into a small solution, you get paid small money.
Yes.
You create a big solution, you stop pancreatic cancer and you make big money. If you can sell a company or you take something, and sometimes if you created Post-it notes, you're worth millions. And so my wife sits around sometimes and she'll go and say, oh my gosh, this would be really good. So like while we're in a pandemic, Peloton, the little bike that you have with the TV in front and everyone's on the bike and everything, she goes, we started out, we bought a Peloton just before to work out in our house. And then she goes, wow, this was brilliant. She goes, I just looked on a thing that I looked at the stocks at 17. And she goes, we need to buy that stock. And I go, you've never looked at a stock price in your entire life. And she goes, and I thought, and then as soon as I said it, I'm thinking, we're at 2 chairs. She's God's chair. I'm sitting in the other. So listen, I set up 2 chairs. I never sit in his chair, but I let my wife sit there. Or if I ever have any of my kids have problems, they got to sit in God's chair. So they get the whole, listen, these have been prayed up. I don't ever sit and think about these thoughts except at 2 chairs. I have a round table in my office and I have 2 chairs at my house, and both of them are anointed. One here anointed so I can help people in business, and then another there. So when you're so onto something here. So I started and said, hey, so initially I can really help someone with marketing ideas and strategies. And everyone has one thing. They're either going to give the great marketing, finance, the idea, the connection. And so one of the things of bringing someone to someone, they can't do it. I just said to them, listen, I have a company that we do this. And funny is that God's already bringing them to me. So they're already looking for it. Heard about this. And I said, well, here's all the people that I think I could do for that. I said, listen, what we'll do is we'll set it up and I'll take 5% to start, sit on your board. We'll take 5%. You'll want me on the board's name because I can help you with that, the recognition, because I know all the people here in these sports. And then but as soon as we get going, if all of a sudden we start to see that I can get you some companies, it moves to 10.
Yes.
And so, and the thing about God is he goes, God says, that's what I'm hearing. Or I'll be talking to someone and he'll go, yeah, you don't, they say, well, we really can't do that. Oh, I'd really like to help you, but that's all right. God just told me no. and then they say, okay, we'll do it. And so how many times do we just give up like all our money because we're weak and we just think like, hey, first off, I'm making this up as we go. I've never done this half the time. And listen, all great stuff is this. One of the things I want everyone who's listening to this is God's doing a new thing. I have to really pause. He's doing a new thing. He's doing a new thing in you. He's doing a new thing in me. He's doing it every single day. And so I'm not worried about your stuff. Listen, he paid for all the sins already. Stop it. You're killing me. You're talking about this stuff. Stop it. Just spend more time with him. When listen, all the things that so easily beset you and are bothering you, the only reason they're still there is you just don't understand how good God is over here. He's good. He's so good. It's like people who are addicted to alcohol. Listen, yeah, but it's better if you just walked over here and had joy over here. I mean, don't do that. It's ruining your next day. You don't feel good. You stop it. You're not at your best. And so I don't care what subject we're talking about. Listen, that's where friends come in. Friend is a person who knows the song in your heart and they can sing it back to you when you've forgotten the words. So men over the age of 35, stop adding friends. Men over 60, and the young guys, they keep their old ones. They don't add any new ones. They're friendly. Don't get me wrong. They're damn glad to meet you people and with the other people, but they ain't going to come over to the house for barbecue. Right. And so, but men over 60 give up their old friends as well. And they just focus in on their family. And the problem here is that God needs you to have friends. He couldn't have given Jesus 12 friends, 3 close, 1 best, and not given you. And so he has to do this because these are the people who are helping you achieve all the things that you need done, because we're all a cup short of greatness. With you, Wes, I'm better. I mean, I do some things great. You do much better for me. I'm okay with that. I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I mean, I'll stop talking when you get into your sweet spot, and then I'll say, and of course, Wes, he's going to talk about this, and Wes takes over, and then we win the piece of business.
Yeah,
and that's where we have to understand who are, and of course, the who of who's is sitting at the 2 chairs with you.
Yes,
he's the who. And so I do not have to have. So one of the things that's so unbelievable is while you're sitting and talking in any meeting that you're in, you're thinking. So now, since I was with him earlier, at first, I gave him my first. He promised then all these other things are added unto you. And then he told me, and I'm with someone, I'm expecting when the first person comes and hits me and I have to, now I'm going to help this person. Oh, I'm so much more bold. I look and say, hey, listen, I need to tell you something. So I got up this morning and I prayed, and God told me specifically that I was going to meet with you, and I'm here with you. And so I want to pray. Now, what do you do? I mean, no one says no to prayer when they're in trouble. I mean, that's a fear most people have, is like, oh, can I pray for you? I'm not like praying like I'm not a pastor. I'm a CEO of an executive search firm, but I'm disguised as an executive search firm, aren't I? Kind of guy. Because I believe we're all marketplace ministers.
Yeah.
And I don't think, listen, I think God wants you to be, he'd like you to be a billionaire, but I don't think you need to be a billionaire. I mean, money, um, he gives you it all just what you need. Listen to me, he already, one of the things that is a cop out I find for Christians, if they're not asking the question they should, one of the cop outs is, well, what if it's, if it's God's will, or it's this, what are you talking about? You've died. Christ lives in you. He wrote on your heart a new thing, and all the desires of your heart that you're really wanting. I don't want things that I don't really want. And the thing he does, and there's nothing that he couldn't get or do. And I'm not wanting silly, stupid stuff. Although I'd like to have a jet just so I can come over and see you, Wes.
Yes,
And when I would like that. And so I'd like everyone who's listening to pray for that. So it's the only thing that I'd actually really like, because I don't need all this other stuff. I'm still in the same house I've been in for 36 years. I'm married to the same wife for 38 years. And, I'm in the same job. I did a talk on change, and I said, you might think that I don't like change. And the answer is, but listen, there's nothing about my marriage is the same with 3 daughters and 4 grandkids. And there's nothing about my job that's the same. And I can promise you, my house does not look the same since I've been in it.
Okay, Bob, this actually leads to stuff around timing, because sometimes we hear, we get a prophetic word or God says something, but then is it for now? Is it for later on? Whereas it seems to be God speaks to you and you just do it. But does sometimes he speak to you and said, this is for down the track?
I think there's times that in anything we do, we start immediately.
Yes.
Then there's no wait on when God talks to you about something. And there's no alert thought that something's not happening. So, sometimes, it takes, I've been in on one of the LLC deals, and it looks like it's taken like 8 or 9 months for us to get through. And then I would look at all these people, and they're all like, oh my gosh, it's not going to go, or this isn't doing. And I said, yeah, but we're learning. So it's all about learning and growing. And so we didn't really understand the business to start with. And I didn't know that I'd be like the head of sales for this group also, right? And I'd have to write all their stuff and do all this. And I'm thinking, but I found it just becomes more of a blessing, and I get more blessed. And I've now figured, and then finally we're moving, and boom, we got a hit. And now we got a second hit. Now we got a third hit. Now it looks like I was telling you earlier, it could be 15 years worth of search work for me. All of a sudden, 15 years. But the question is, God never quits. He never quits on anything. He's never going to quit on you. There's no time that you could ever go anywhere where he's not going to come and get you. He's going to leave the 100 to go find you. There's no time out here. And the answer is, that's why it's so important to forgive people and to help them and get them over some issues. Pandemics has really hindered people, because especially young people who are like their first year in college, they're not with other people. They're not with their peeps. They can't be with their who. And so you got to call them and say, hey, are you okay? Is everything going good? Hey, you might say, if God says to me, hey, I want you to do something. I've always heard this, and it's just amazing. I'll never forget, Cheryl's dad had all of a sudden, my wife's dad had a heart attack. And so they lived about 2.5 hours away, and they were at some, crappy hospital that he just happened to be over at some place. And I hear God say to me, get in the car and leave this second. So I turned to Cheryl and said, hey, you keep the kids and that's all the stuff. And I'm going to get you there. And we're going to do all that. And I got in the car and drove. And for somehow it was a 2.5 drive, but I got there and in 1 hour and 54 minutes or something. Right. But I will say, I probably was driving a little fast, but but God was saying to me, I was already talking to her. And as soon as I arrived, we call Cheryl's mom Mama, and he was Pawpaw. And he was in the ambulance already going, and she was all alone. And as soon as the ambulances left, I arrived. Is that not how good God is? And immediately I solved it. I immediately got there. I got to talk to him beforehand. And God, he wanted to tell me some messages specifically and things I needed to do, and that he felt God was taking him. And that he said, hey, you need to get these 3 things done for me. Will you, are you there? And so here it is that God, so if you'll listen, Um, and he says to you, I want you at that funeral. I want you at that wedding. I want you at the situation. I don't want you to be fearful about this. I need you to call this person and encourage them. I need you to send a note to me. Like, if every single day, people should get on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn with me. And because every single day I put up a post from 2 chairs. I sit at 2 chairs and I'm putting, and God's telling me something. And when I do it, and then he says, and I do it, and he goes, hey, and we laugh, and he tells me some line. And so I write it, and then I'm doing posts. And so God, if people are thinking, hey, how could you have time to, because I'm going to write, I'm in the midst of writing a new book. I've got my 4th grandchild going to be done coming in April. I'm got a whole business. I got 3 daughters who are usually in trouble in some things. And and I got a bunch of businesses, and I got speeches. I'm going to do things. That thing is this: time is our enemy, but timing is our best friend. It's a paradox. He owns time. All you have to do is just show up a little burst. If I could encourage people, listen, you wake up in the morning, boom, you're out of the bed. You're running over, you're getting your coffee. We're not reading his autobiography while we're talking to somebody. We're not looking at our devotional and reading a devotional, vicariously living through someone else, having a good conversation with him. He's there. He wants to talk to you. I put on some light Christian music that I love, and I'm set up my mood. I'm sitting in here, I'm talking to him. I got my coffee. I'm sitting here. And then I had taken the dog out, I took Rudy outside, I got it all set. And so this is all unbelievable. And then we sit and talk. And so you've got to get into the motion of your burst. And then your mate gets up. Oh, bam, you got to hit them with a burst of the love. Just the same way your dog does when the dog sees you. My dog loves me so much. It's like a perfect example of God. He means, oh my gosh, I'm just so happy to see you. I so love you. And then you're going to get a chance with somebody in your day. And so your voice, when you answer the phone, hey, how are you? Oh my gosh, it's so great to hear from you. Is everything going okay? How's your family? Don't get into business. We're not in for the deal. We're in for the relationship. Listen, Zig Ziglar again, man, the guy really had some good quotes. If you want your dreams to come true, make other people's dreams come true. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. It's that the guy just is, and he lived in my neighborhood. I mean, the guy would walk by. I'd be walking down the street, Bob, top of the morning. And, he's just unbelievable. And so my point is, our little burst is what God's wanting, because he needs you to be there with a totally contrarian view to what's happening. If you would do, he says, can I trust you, Bob? I got some people in trouble. I need you to love on them. I don't need you to like them. I need you. Don't give me the like stuff. Don't give them a little portion of me. I need your full attention. And if you do that for me, I mean, I'm telling you, I can just see your parents while you do that. And my parents are both passed. My parents above her, and then he's got there. Get over here. Look at Bob. That's exactly what I wanted to happen today. And I mean, there's a cloud of witnesses. And then we're all thinking, I hope there's not a cloud of witnesses during my not so good stuff. But I know this, in the burst of the morning, he's already got tender mercies for me. I mean, and people can't get around the fact that we serve somebody who loves us so much. And Easter is such a great time to think about it. I mean, it's the most horrendous way to die. It's the most horrendous thing. And at the same time, he paid for all our shame, our fears, he's bruised for our iniquities. I mean, there's so much that he just took, and he knows, and it's not too hard. He's got a plan. And listen, each person who's listening today, he's got a plan for you that's unbelievable. I can promise you, I don't care who it is. If you lived here and your son was down for the count, had 2 DUIs and had something else that was in trouble, and you said, I don't know what to do. It's just, he's driving us crazy and da-da-da. Yeah, send him over here. I want him. Let me love on him for a second, and we'll get him a job. But there's no one that God isn't going to. That's a story like the movie Rudy. That's everything. Everything about our story is the more trouble is the thing that all of a sudden God does great. But he does want you on your process deal. I love this little time in the Bible is, so Jesus walking down the side of the road, there's the man who's blind, can't get into the little pool of water that needs to be stirring for him to jump in. He's blind, he can't stand. He's walking by him, he hears that Jesus is coming by, and he's yelling, screaming for Jesus, and Jesus doesn't stop. Wow, it's such an unbelievable story. Okay, there he is, he doesn't stop. And then he keeps screaming, and the disciples, those really good Christian guys, he starts screaming, they go over to him and say, don't bug him. And this is like a setup to the setback. And it's so fantastic. And that's our lives. We're all movies. Your life is a movie, and we're doing the done. All business is done backwards. We think about what it is that we'd like to finish, and then we work it backwards. And that's where God's doing. And so all of a sudden he's down here, and then all of a sudden Jesus comes over to him and he says this, and he says it to each of us all the time. So Wes, what do you want? No, he knows you're blind. He knows you can't stand up, but he needs you. He knows that the one thing leads to another. He's got to get you to declare what it is you want, and then he's going to get you to declare another thing. And if you do these two declarations, you and I are rocking, and everyone else here on this videos and all across Australia, all across the world are going to be rocking. What is it? Okay. So what he says is that, hey, what do you want? The guy goes, I want to stand and I want to see. And he goes, so do you believe I can do that? I do. Yes, I believe that. Stand up. Whoosh. So do you believe? Are you available today? Do you believe him? Can you give him your cares and can leave them there for one day? My mom would say, I finished my thing with my, because what's so great about Two Chairs is I give you 3 questions and 7 things to do in your time of crisis. Okay. And it's so fantastic. And so run to your chairs, call your friends in trouble, make sure that you're getting up high ground, like we're at a football game where we can see, or soccer game where we can see what's really happening here. And we can see so much better, like we're cutting lawns in the wrong fields or something, And so wrong field. And so we can get people over here, and then, hey, change is going to happen. Change is good. We hate changes, people. This is a Sheryl Crow song. Hey, change will do you good. We need some change. And so as soon as you make a change, the enemy's all of a sudden making changes. They're coming out to get you. This is like halftime. And so I need you to be strong and courageous. It's not going to happen overnight. Okay. I need you to keep your eyes forward. Don't look backwards. I don't want you doing it. Don't look back at Sodom and Gomorrah here. I don't want you looking back. And then, hey, I need you to do the done. God's already done all this. He's won. We've won the victory. And so I told to my mom, and I come to her, and of course the day I've won no victories. I mean, my day's shambles. Whatever I had wrong just got double wrong. And so I come and I said to her, what do you do at the end? And all of a sudden you've done all 7 steps and da-da-da. And she goes, oh, that's so fantastic. That's what my mom would say. Oh, that's so fantastic. She'd go, that's when God says, see you tomorrow, same place, same time. I mean, I love having a mom like that. I mean, it's so good in this process that you can't believe it. And so what's the next question?
Well, I'm conscious that time is running.
Sure. That's what we do. We always listen. We're in Australia and in Dallas. It's like, oh my gosh, we should do this every week.
I'm up for it if you are.
We're just like, if people really knew what we're doing here, we're like, all of a sudden we're opening doors and breaking gates. What people should understand, there's no guardrails and no ceilings to anything. There's no height, no depth, no length, no breadth or width to Two Chairs. We haven't even scraped the beginning. Our brains are only doing like 2 or 3, 4%. What if we could actually get the insight, the wisdom, and the power and the favor, and we really knew it? Now, you got to believe that God really wanted us to do that. You know that he wanted us to go out and heal people and prophesy to them and give them words of encouragement and knowledge. And he wanted us to, he wants us to be fully in the spirit. But I don't know. It's hard. Why? because my boss just told me this, he's a butthead and he's did this and I can't do that. And my whole life's in shambles. And I came home and no one in my house loved on me and no one's nice to me and my family. And this, 2 chairs. Because if you're looking, you need to run to them at the second that happens, because God looks and goes, listen, I need you to see the day different. If I give you everything, you're the bride of us. We're prepared here. We're a team. And so I'm going to meet all your needs. And then you can go and love on your wife. You can love on your husband. Go over and say to him and give him a hug. And when was the last time? You and I both know, I think if people would just do this, if husbands would just help out in the kitchen and give their wife a back massage, and if a wife would give their man a hug. I mean, we know the difference between a good hug and a bad one. I know the difference of a good kiss and a good kiss, and we need to be champions again. And we need to be, husbands and wives need to be best friends. So that God said there's no greater love, than to lay your life down for a friend. The friendship is the greater love. You have to be best friends. When I do this text message game, that we send out to everybody and we say, hey, I was just thinking about you. I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate your friendship. I love you. When people send that to their mate, 94% come back, did you mean this for me? It's so sad. And then I say, no, I meant this for you. And then they say, seriously, who's got your phone? And then we say, no, I meant this for you. I love you. And then the love letters start coming. See, it doesn't take much, but the problem is it's one thing leads to another. If you send it to your friends, they want to know if you're drunk. They want to know if all of a sudden you're okay in a pandemic. And the answer is, no, I am okay. And so my friend's never going to say he loves me back. No, he is. You just haven't said, hey, I was thinking about you. I mean, the issue is these are the 3 most affirming lines. I'm not telling you who to send it to. I'm just saying that you got to tell. There's 180 words in the Greek language, as we discussed earlier. There are 180 words in the Greek language for love. We've got 1. Okay, I love my wife, Cheryl. I love tacos. And of course, it's complicated. But here's the thing. One of the things that I can promise you at 2 Chairs that we need more than anything is we need to know when you sit with God, you are getting full love. You're not getting God does not believe in constructive criticism. He's only working on what he wants. He's never talking about where you're the other. He's paid for that. He's trying to remind you who you are, not get you to feel bad about who you used to be, the died person. I mean, this is who you are, Bob. Listen to me. You know what I love about you is you're going to go in and you're going to do this and this and this, and it's all going to be good. And don't worry about that. I need you to just go tell, hey, while I'm there, he says, hey, make sure Cheryl, did you know that this about Cheryl? She doesn't feel good about this today. He'll tell me that. And then I'll say, hey, did you, hey, how can I help you on this today? And it's just but listen, we have the keys to the kingdom and we're not using. And so if I could just encourage people that don't worry about the fact that you haven't been there at 2 Chairs. Don't worry that you kind of go by it. But listen, you can't start your day without getting your battle plan. I mean, don't do this. People, like I did a talk for a big church, and then the guy goes, you can do this at 2 o'clock, at 4 o'clock. And I go, no, you can't. You got to do it first. Why? Because God loved you first. He forgave you first. He died for you first. He chose you first. Everything about God is first. And so all he needs you to do is 5 minutes first. And then he'll be before you. He'll be in middle with you. He'll be out way ahead of you. He will solve the problem. He's sending you direction. It might last 2 years. It might last 5 years, but it's done. The question would be is, what else has he got for you? Like this, we keep living our lives one-dimensional. We're who-dimensional. Our friends, he gave you these people. Listen to me. I can take you places you've never been. You just haven't asked me. That's the whole point of the power who. We don't, if you and I are best friends, would you help me? You'll say yes. And then I say, why would you deny me the same joy of helping you? And see, if we can get back to being Christians, the body of Christ, if I never understood, can you imagine how much money we'd all make? We just took our 14, 20, 100 people that are listening, and all of us, we start our own company. I promise you, just in our own group, with what we could teach them right now, we all be multimillionaires. There's no problem that you have on money. You have no impact, which you're wanting impact. And the only reason you don't have impact is because we don't have contact. You want impact? Connect. With who? The King of Kings, the creator of the universe. He has no problems. It's a great day. Today is Good Friday here in Dallas. And so, and I'm telling you, on Easter, we're just reminded again that he rose to do what? To get into a chair next to you, to lead you, to guide you. You're important to him because you're the heir of the throne. You're somebody that he has, and you're going to do something, even if you don't possibly think in your mind that you're worthy enough to do it. You are not a good person. You've never done this. You do one thing better than anybody in the world, and it's about to unleash, and we're unleashing it right now. In the name of Jesus, I just pray unleashing of every single person who's listening on this and has listened to this, that they would go to their chair and say and talk just naturally, like we've been talking. That's how I talk to God. And God is going to start whispering into your ear. And then you're going to find that the enemy does not want you to do this, because he does not want you to know you're the son or daughter of the king. So think that there'll be more calamity. I bet that there's going to be dogs knocking things over, and your kids are all of a sudden going to get up, and you're going to go, I'm not going to be bothered by that. It's coming. I'm telling you, it's coming. And listen to me, whatever you get, if you got a second, start to praise him, and the angels will encamp wherever you are, and he'll step his foot into the room. And if he steps his foot in the room, you're changed. And that's why when you go out, you'll look like Moses. Everybody carries this personal environment and it's going to be invisibly transmitted to everybody else. You're going to give them the who juice. You're going to give it to them. Why? Because God has met all your needs. I'm done. I'm ready. I'm this. And time is nothing to me, because it's 1,000 years and a day. And so he can turn it in a second. He can transport us. You got to believe and understand that. So blessings on each and every person. I'm just telling you, I'm sending it the exact same way that Jesus did with the centurion. I'm just sending the word, and you are going to be blessed. Every single person. If you sat across from me at 2 chairs and you did this in my office, I've never had anybody whose their life wasn't totally transformed. And I'm telling you that I feel the exact same way, because I just moved into my office, my other one, for this other room, and I feel that just way. I just got unbelievable rush. I did. It's just unbelievable. And I just feel it. Get ready. It's coming.
Thank you. But we are going to have to leave it there, because we've been going an hour and a half, which is really, really good. And I can see people could sit here all day with you, but I know that you have encouraged us no end. And thank you for your obedience to God. When he said, phone me, I will answer that call. Bless you. Thank you so much. Words.
I love you. Yeah. Every person I see all your names. Thank you. Is it Shiny or Shiny? It's whatever it is.
Shiny.
Huh?
Yes.
Yes. Blessings. I love it. Tony, blessings. Yeah. Blessings, everyone. All you guys in this process. Myrna, everybody that you've been on. Thank you for all your questions. I'm going home.
That's good.
Thanks.
Enjoy your Easter weekend, and bless you. And we'll talk
again. We'll do this again.
We will.